when they listen to it recorded.
They won't notice it when they listen to it recorded. If you're watching us live on Twitch, we are a day later because I was tired as hell yesterday because I had a really long week of a graduation party and getting ready for a graduation party and a soon-to-be 18-year-old high-maintenance daughter.
And you're working crazy hours, and you're probably working crazy hours even more because you're going on vacation next week.
I mean, not too much. I mean, I usually work about 50 to 55 hours a week, but I will say that, briefly, with the shortened hours of, like, my store closes at 7 o'clock, which every other retail organization pretty much closes at 7 or 8 o'clock now. The rush of when the normal 9 to 5 person gets off work and comes to the store between like 6 and 7 is really, really, really bad.
Yeah, that sounds terrible.
But for the most part, everything has been okay. It was just go to work, come home and do some more work, and work on the days off, get in the backyard ready, and just making sure that all the stuff is in shape. And then, and then cleaning like every little nook and cranny of your house because you're worried that somebody's going to look at your windowsill and think you're a filthy human being. Because you forgot to dust something. So, needless to say,
that's when you put fun stuff in your medicine cabinet for like that nosy person that's gonna like look in there when they go to the bathroom.
Anti-firearm medication.
Yeah, just random stuff. Let's go to Party City, have at it, and just throw that in your medicine cabinet.
So, all right, we are Digital Days Gaming. We are a weekly podcast that covers all gaming platforms. We are going to prove that today. We are live on Twitch, typically Sundays or Monday nights. It's been a little bit more Mondays, except for today, which is Tuesday. And we release the podcast on Thursday mornings at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. And if you are a supporter of us on Patreon, you get it 24 hours early on Wednesday at 6 a.m. So we appreciate all the Patreon supporters. There are other tiers as well for Patreon. If you want to check that out, you can go to patreon.com/digitaldaysgaming. A lot of you have done that already, and that's super, super helpful. The support has been awesome there, and you get bonus episodes if you hit a $7 tier, and you get Discord access for a $3 tier. You get that if you are a Twitch sub as well. So you can use a paid Twitch sub at twitch.tv/digitaldaysgaming, or if you have Amazon Prime and you link it with Twitch, you get Twitch Prime. You get a bunch of really cool loot. Some console game stuff, some PC game stuff, some free games, some download codes for cosmetic items in games. There's a whole bunch of stuff that they're doing. And you also get a sub to the streamer of your choice on Twitch. And if you use that on us, that's greatly appreciated. It does not auto-renew. So I put something on our Facebook group the other day just asking people to check it, and our sub numbers went up. So thank you. Speaking of Facebook, we have a Facebook group and a page. So Digital Days Gaming, you'll find both of them by searching it that way, and you can join the group and join the conversations that we're having around Ghost of Tsushima and the games of service and other things going on. And I'm sure it'll ramp up a little bit this week with the Xbox briefing. So join that conversation, have fun, like the page when you're there so you can see when we post an episode or remind you that we have an episode posted, or we ask for Ask Digital Days questions that we use for the community to help drive the show. So with that, I hinted at a very diverse, because we came from a PlayStation background, but we love to cover all platforms of gaming, and today we're going to prove it. But first, we're going to talk about this weird-ass site called Metacritic.
Yes, Metacritic, the infamous Metacritic that is like the bane of video game developers' existence. They have changed the way they do things. They are now going to delay when users can post reviews by 36 hours after the game released. They wanted to do this as a new way just because they know games are getting longer, and before you could post a user review within minutes of the game launching. And though they say this wasn't driven by any particular game, this was driven most likely by The Last of Us Part 2, which was review bombed within like several minutes or an hour with like a ton of negative reviews for people angry for stupid reasons. And they wanted to implement this 36-hour thing because that's enough time for most people to play a game and get a good feel for it. And they had to do this because like Metacritic was becoming less and less valuable as sites like dropped the review score element, and the user review stuff was just being used for freaking stupid reasons of just people angry about certain decisions as opposed to being about the game. I really like this. The next step, I think, is linking your PSN, Xbox Live, Steam account, or whatever to your Metacritic account, so then you can verify that you actually played the game. Because the review bomb is now just going to be delayed 36 hours,
Right.
if anything. But Dave, we have a little bit of history, like dealing with Metacritic, not too much, but
Yeah.
it's definitely like a thing that is kind of controversial, its existence in general. But what do you
Yeah.
think about this new
I mean, we've
thing?
heard that, Metacritic has some weird standards for you to be able to be on there and some rules. We're not even attempting to be on Metacritic. I'm not even, if I ever get to the point where I need to worry about that, like that'll be a huge deal to me if that becomes something that I want to be, that we need to be concerned about. But the site in general, like I just use it kind of more as a resource or as a reference now, not even as more of just a data collection thing. I don't really look at the what's going on or read the reviews or anything there. I just like, oh, like 44 people average gave it this score. Here's the highest, here's the lowest. And then I don't really ever look at the user score either, because like I feel like just like on Voodoo or Rotten Tomatoes, like a lot of times the user score is always lower. Like it's just always so low.
Oh yeah,
And it's like
it's
that
either
movie's not
it's
that
the
bad.
opposite.
Yeah.
It's always the opposite of whatever the critic review is. Like if
Yeah.
a movie gets panned critically, then user score is going to be like, "This is the greatest ever,"
Yeah.
and same happens in reverse.
I mean, I went to like the most recent time I looked at it, obviously, was last week when the Ghost of Tsushima stuff was hitting, and just to see, and to see the where it was hitting at, like right after the embargo, because that's the time where it really, really matters to me, because these are the more, I don't want to say major, but more heavily influenced reviewers, like these people that have the game early and had it multiple weeks early, and those guys that, or gals, or people that had it with that a significant amount of time in, like they're the ones that are going to write, that I feel are going to write the correct review and hit the embargo. So when they hit the embargo and you look at Metacritic, 15, 20 minutes after the embargo lifts, that's the time where you really get the cool thing, versus a situation like us. If we were on Metacritic and we weren't on Sony's list to get something, like we would have had to get the game at launch, and it would have been a couple of days, or longer, or week, or who knows how long before we would have gotten our quote unquote scored review posted for Metacritic to start collecting the data. Not that our opinion would have been any less or any more, but that at that point, right at the embargo time, is where it matters to me. I don't really ever care about user scores. And then even my problem with, like, not to change the subject entirely, but Ghost of Tsushima, it was more about what the people were writing and saying in their reviews and their video reviews, and then the score. And I'm like, those two things don't go together.
And that happens a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we've internally kind of debated on, like, do we need a score, like, on our reviews? It's becoming less and less a thing, which is why I think Metacritic is like stepped up to like try and like save their user score portion, because I think more and more people are moving away from that. I know there's still a lot of people that kind of just go to Metacritic or OpenCritic or Rotten Tomatoes and they look at a product, see what the score is, and that decides their purchase. They don't need to read any context or anything. They just look at the score. And I'm assuming it must be kind of annoying for consumers that don't want to like read the text when they do see like The Last of Us at like a 96, and then for the critics, and then the user is like a 2.5, and then they're just like, I don't understand how any of this is possible. So
but I do some of the same
that.
thing when I buy product too. Like I want to read the review. I want to read the guy that felt inclined enough to give this a 2-star review of the product that I'm looking at. And I also want to read the people that give it a 9, 9 out, or 4.5 out of 5, and you're looking for, I guess for me, like when I'm looking at reviews, whether it's video games or products or anything, I'm looking kind of like trying to see a consistent message of like, I really like this, and this. And hopefully in the other reviews that score something high, they kind of say the same thing. So that's kind of more what I'm looking for. And not so much the score. And then the same thing. If one person goes, this thing always veers to the left, and the other person goes, this thing always veers to the right, I'm like, I don't know who to believe.
Well, it's funny. I think years of me writing reviews, when I look for Ghost Tsushima's like review scores, I went directly for the middling reviews. I looked for the 7s, that like 6, 7, and 8. I looked at those numbers because from my experience writing, those scores are like the hardest to write. Like justifying a middling score, you need to make sure you
It's
have
not
all your
bad,
shit together.
but it's not good.
Yeah, and you can't just put that, so you have to justify it, as opposed to when it's a 1 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10. Those are easy to write.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, this sucked, this was really bad, 1 out of 10, or this was great, this is amazing, 10 out of 10.
And
those
writing
reviews
that,
I tend to ignore.
Writing that is the hardest thing to do. Like, you can sit here and you and I can have a conversation, and in the end, somebody could listen to us and be like, I hear what Dave is saying, but he just doesn't have any excitement or build behind it in his tone of his voice. He's kind of just going through the motions. Or Michael's reviewing that game and he sounds really excited about it and sounds like he really had fun. That's really hard to portray into written word, which is part of the reason why I love video content and audio content so much.
Yeah.
Even if somebody writes a script and then still speaks it, there's still, you can feel or see, depending on whether it's audio only or audio and visual, their emotion and their excitement or their disdain or disgust or displeasure with the game. You can hear or feel that more in an audio form than you can in a written form, which again leads to your point of reading multiple people's, like in multiple writers' perspective of anything.
Yeah. Well, that's why, and also, people always freak out when IGN gives her a low or high score, and people are like, "Oh, IGN's terrible." And I always look at the author. I'm at the point where there's 3 or 4 games journalists that when a new game comes out and I know they played it, I go to them immediately when I'm not sure about a game, because I kind of pick them as closest to my my style, my preference, to where I look at specific people every time a game comes out. I'm like, okay, I align with this person's ideology, so I care about their review more than the freelancer at a big site.
Right.
And then when the people that I trust and prefer to review games aren't reviewing it, that's when I go to a Metacritic or an OpenCritic and I look at the middling scores, just because again, I think it's way harder to write a middle of the road review than it is a perfect score or a worse score, because there's always some sort of bias on either end. Now, I almost feel like most 1 out of 10s, there's usually some sort of agenda, and same thing with a 10 out of 10. There's always some little thing that you need to, biases that you need to work with.
But the user the user score aspect always fascinated me. But for the most part, do you care what your friend thinks of a game that you enjoyed?
It depends on how close of a friend.
Yeah.
So my friends that are my best friends.
No, a coworker.
No, I don't give it.
So why do people care about the user score of the guy in Utah? Sorry, Chandler. That decides that I hate this game because there's no blonde hair, blue eyed person in it.
I think it just becomes it's just like our political system now, where it's all tribalism, where people like to pick a team and they get pissed if their team isn't doing well. And I think that comes down to games. That's why we still have fanboys in 2020. People that are diehard PlayStation, diehard Xbox, diehard Nintendo, and you can't tell them otherwise. So a diehard PlayStation fan is the one that's going to fight people on Twitter over The Last of Us. It's just how we always see things.
Yeah.
I loved The Last of Us Part 2, and that's why I like our Discord. When we put the spoiler room in, there was different varying opinions in there.
Yep.
And I don't think I ever was angry at anyone that said they didn't like it.
Yeah.
I always wanted to start more of a dialogue of just hey, tell me more about that. Here's what I think about this aspect of the game. And I really like those conversations.
Yeah, just
we're in a very close community.
Yeah, the blind faith is what concerns me, though. Oh, it's a Sony production. It'll be great. No. Oh, it's an Xbox studio. It'll be great. Or it's Matrix 4. I don't care. Matrix 400. It'll be great. And it's not just in video games. It's with product. It's with cars. It's with movie directors. It's with appliances. Especially
Ford or Chevy.
Yeah, or just anything. Apple made a television. It'll be perfect. Because it's Apple.
Yeah.
And it's, or Android's trying to make a bigger phone. They're just copying Apple. It'll just be trash. And I just feel like you not opening your mind and opening your eyes and your perspective to multiple views. And we're all guilty of it, myself included, of trying to be too close-minded. You need to learn and listen to the other side to either strengthen or weaken your own position.
Yeah, you need to be able to look in the mirror kind of thing, and like look other places as well at the same time. I
Yeah,
don't know. People get stuck in
switching.
tribalism.
We're at 38 episodes in, and the transitions and the changes that I've made, that we've made, to the multiple platform. Myself specifically, you were kind of always dabbling in a little bit of multiple platforms more. I had kind of just inadvertently moved into Sony and kind of was there for a couple of years, and it was fine. But then I forgotten how much I enjoyed playing the Marios of the world and the Zeldas of the world, and some of the stuff that I've been, like some of the games I've been dabbling with on PC a little bit, and trying to break my mold and break the rut that I've been in for a while is challenging, and I need to find something new that's going to grab me, and that can't only be on one platform.
Yeah, and especially now, like we still haven't quite seen it, but we'll see slowdown in new releases. I think we'll definitely get that around launch of the new consoles, in terms of like stuff available to play. So like limiting yourself to one platform, that's just been a thing we've been harping on since the beginning. Mm-hmm. But let's switch to our next news story. I did put a small news story in here.
Yeah, this came out today. I saw that. Yeah.
Rocket League is going free to play in August, which there's not much news with that. Yeah,
they've already switched to the seasonal
the game's
model.
Been out for 5 years.
Well, I mean, it's been out for a long time. They've switched to a seasonal driven, heavily cosmetic driven game with either, I think they have a battle pass too, or a season pass each season. Mm-hmm. It's got a competitive esport mode to it. At this point in time, the thing that's the most fascinating to me is the free to play and then the cross play, like going fully in. It's always supported cross play, like PC to PS4. I don't think it had the Xbox to PlayStation at all.
No, they opened that up eventually, I believe. Okay, but when it first launched, it was only Steam and PS4, and then it eventually opened up to everything.
So again, amazing, like great game, fun game, just a game just to hang out and chill with your friends and play and goof around, and it matters, but it doesn't matter, but it's fun and it's laughing, and then just I mean I'm happy for them. It doesn't. They have some affiliation with Epic now too, right?
They're owned by Epic.
Yeah. Okay. So
again, Epic bought them.
And if we get Rocket League Battle Royale, I might get a little worried.
I mean, they already added like a loot box elements. I think.
But I'm
that's
talking about like trying to knock people off the hill or something.
Oh yeah, I'd be down for anything, to be honest. So I did see some people were upset because they bought the game 5 years ago, but most people I think got it for free on the PlayStation.
Yeah, but then they say they're already gonna anybody that logs in beforehand, like a legacy thing. Yeah, they're gonna be like, here's a bunch of really cool, pretty paint.
Yeah, they're giving a bunch of stuff to legacy players, and they're also, not only is it, it already has cross-platform, but they're going to do cross-progression. So you're just going to have a Rocket League account, and every platform is
which is what
progression
I have,
carries over.
Which is what I have with Destiny. So
yeah, which I think is huge, especially
progression sounds like too big of a word. It's cross-save.
Mm-hmm. Which sounds great. It sucks though. It is leaving Steam, so Steam versions will still be upgraded over time, but you can't purchase it on Steam anymore. You have to purchase it on Epic, but it's free to play. You really can't complain like that much about that. I use GOG Galaxy, so all my stuff is in one launcher anyway.
Keep forgetting to download that thing, and then I saw something that Epic has a merger with them now too, right? So now like everything works.
Not a merger, but yeah, they allow the account to sync in with it. So yeah, GOG Galaxy is so great. It even connects to my PSN. So I have my PSN friend list, my Epic friend list, my Microsoft friend list. It's really nice.
Next time I'm streaming, I don't care. Next time you see me stream, somebody tell me download GOG. Like somebody just remind me, because every time I'll walk away and I'll go to bed tonight and I'll just forget about it.
Yeah. The only annoying part was like seeing all the accounts and being like, okay, what is my Uplay account? Okay, what's my Epic account?
Thankfully, almost all that stuff I do that save password thing on this computer. I'm like, and nobody really goes into that file on this computer and usually doesn't get into any of this. So I'm not always this advocate for save password things, but on this particular computer that you have to get in with a password to get into my profile, I'm kind of okay with it. So.
Yeah, okay. That's what Dave accidentally gives out too much information. He's like, damn it, I lost all my passwords.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's switch over to what basically is going to be like the Microsoft section of this podcast, because as we all know, Microsoft is doing an event later this week. They already launched a demo thing on Xbox Live where there's like 70 demos for a bunch of indie games. That already launched this week. Last week, they were doing a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that came out in preparation for next gen. So
and
the
this is
first story.
This is everything that we've asked other studios or companies to do before you do a press conference. Because other like Sony would have saved some of this stuff for a press conference style presentation, and Microsoft knocking this stuff off the list of like, hey, if you want to know what we said about so and so, go check out this link, and we're focused on this. So like this is actually getting me even more excited for this event on Thursday.
They are getting rid of all the little bullshit things that would have just eaten up time at a press conference, or would have just been a question mark post press conference, because some of this stuff might not have been mentioned during a press conference. So this is just answering a bunch of little stuff that would have just been annoying. Or like in Sony's case, there's still a lot of questions about like Sony services that we're still going to be talking about for a while.
Sony hasn't said the word PS Plus in a public forum in like 18 months.
Yep. They drop their PS Plus update every month, and that's about it. That is like all they do. All right. So the first story, which I think is pretty cool, actually, this is pretty cool. The other two are a little weird. Mm-hmm. Project XCloud, which is the Microsoft version of Stadia, basically, it is going to be rolled into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, and it will not affect the price. So if you don't know, Xbox Game Pass Ultimate is Xbox Live Gold, which includes games with Gold, Xbox Game Pass for $14.99 a month. XCloud, which currently is in beta, and I'm in the beta, and it's really, really good, is the ability to play Xbox games on your phone,
on a tablet, yeah.
And they're going to roll this into that service, and the price won't change. So all of that, you'll be getting Xbox Live Gold, Games with Gold, Xbox Game Pass, and Project XCloud for $14.99, which is huge. And Xbox XCloud is going to use the games from Game Pass, which is like 100 games. Mm-hmm. So you're getting like this ultimate service that Microsoft's pushing, which I think is like the sign of like where the future of Microsoft is going with Xbox as a brand. But this is all just being rolled into one whole thing. So that means with this $15 service, you'll be able to technically play Halo Infinite anywhere you want, because Halo Infinite is part of Game Pass, mm-hmm. which is in this service, which is a part of xCloud. So with cross save and all that stuff, you literally can play the biggest games from Microsoft anywhere you want, regardless if you're on console or you're on phone, you're on computer, which
I mean, I think is huge. Yeah, what's fascinating about this is that you could have like an iPad, like a beefy iPad. You could buy an Xbox controller, connect it cable-wise, or connect it, Bluetooth if that's possible. I'm not 100% for sure. Or an Android tablet or whatever, and spend $15 a month and not have to own an Xbox console and play Halo, play Hellblade, play Xbox Studio games. That and play some of these other games, like when Streets of Rage 4 first came out on day and date. Minecraft Dungeon came out day and date. Like, you don't have to own the console if you don't want to, or if you don't want to take it with you when you go somewhere.
Yeah, I was using for xCloud. It has DualShock controller support in it. And I just Bluetooth my DualShock to my phone, and I played Forza Horizon like on my phone, and it works really well. I'm really impressed by it. It's Stadia level. Like, Stadia is good, consistent. I'm hoping they expand xCloud a little bit, because currently it doesn't have like a client on PC. But then again, if you have a PC, you have Game Pass, so it doesn't really matter, because you can just download those games straight to it. Mm-hmm. But I would love for a way for me to play on my TV.
Yeah.
Project XCloud. But I think this is huge. This is going to be one of those things where I think Microsoft is pushing to be a software company permanently, like after this generation. They're just getting everyone.
I think they're just pushing Xbox to be an app.
That's what I think. No, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think they're going to. This, I strongly believe this will be success or failure, the last hardware generation for Microsoft. Mm-hmm. And next generation, the most we'll get is like a Chromecast or an Apple TV like device.
Well, don't get me wrong, I'd be totally content going upstairs, picking up my Roku remote, clicking on an Xbox app, and hit OK, put the remote down, pick up the controller, and just play whatever game I want.
Yeah, I would be too. There's so much more money in that than when they released the systems them and Sony will release the systems this year. They'll probably be selling them at a loss, or their profit will be very low. There's all sorts of R&D costs involved with making new hardware. They can save so much money and gain so much more potential money by just getting me and Dave to subscribe for $15 a month, and then we forget we're subscribed every month, and then we keep subscribing to it. I do wonder if games for gold will end up being phased out, because it kind of has no purpose now with Game Pass.
I guess I almost feel like just link them in there and say, hey, for your Games Pass subscription, you can, because they don't really take the games with gold games away. I mean,
no, it's just like PS Plus.
Yeah, when you lose your subscription, you lose access to it. So if you're gonna enter the app and play the app, you're gonna get the stuff anyway. So just say, hey, our Game Pass game, new additions to Game Pass, this for the month of September is blah 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 blah.
Yeah, that would make the most sense to just either phase that service out, or maybe, because I think right now they give away like 4 games. It's like 2 modern games and 2 backwards compatible games. So I can see that being structured significantly. But this is showing that they're confident with xCloud, and you need Xbox Live to, like play online. So you're going to potentially have all those services. So you're probably going to dabble in it. When you launch your Series X and it's like, hey, you're going to subscribe to Ultimate, you're then going to have, they'll probably put something like, hey, you can download the Xbox app on your phone and play this game. And that will be huge for a lot of people who will probably be like, oh, okay, I might use this. And then they'll download it on their phone and then be able to show people like, hey, look, I'm playing Halo at lunch at work, on my phone. So I'm excited for this. I'm hoping this lights a fire under Sony for their services. Who knows if that will happen?
Well, each one of these services is almost worth $15 a month by itself.
I think so too. Like right now, I'm currently paying like $5 for the PC one, but I think that's a steal. Yeah, at $5.
But, I mean, we're paying what? You're paying $10 a month, or no? What, like $7 a month for PS Plus? For people who are paying for PS Plus.
Yeah, when you buy a year membership.
Yeah, and you're getting 2 free games a month now. That's in a VR game once a quarter if you have a VR. So you're really getting 2 free games a month. Every 2 or 3 months, one of them is okay. PS Now costs what, $20 a month?
20 a month?
Yeah. So now you're up for.
No, I think they lowered it. I think they did lower it.
All right, let's just say 10 a month. Even let's lowball. Let's say 10 a month. So now you're for PS Plus and for for PS Now you're at $17 a month. And you're getting access to, if you just, let's say you get it January 1st, you get 2 games if you don't have it retroactively, and you get to play online. You get Xbox Ultimate Game Pass thing, whatever they're going to call it. You get over 100 games on either PC or on console, more on console than on PC. And if xCloud's included in it, you don't even have to own the console.
Yeah. Like, I will probably get this just for that extra access of xCloud, even though I only have a PC now.
Is xCloud worth $10 a month to you?
I had a lot of fun with it, especially so. Like, I couldn't get into Stadia because Stadia just didn't have the library, but like the xCloud beta library has been fantastic. Like, there's games that I've only played on xCloud because it was like, oh, this game's $20, or I can play it on my phone and have a good time on a controller with it. Usually it's only been in situations where like I'm at work, or I'm at someone's house, or like a family thing, and I'm just like, oh, let me just bust out my phone and my controller, or borrow someone's controller. So I would consider doing it, especially $50 a month isn't bad at all for that. If they can somehow get the libraries lined up for Game Pass for PC and Xbox, that would probably sell me even more. Because right now it's just a little different, because there's a lot more games on Xbox than there are on PC.
But doesn't that, if they can figure out some way to put it on a television for you, doesn't that change it? That you don't really need the console, you don't need the library to match, because you get Game Pass Ultimate, so you get everything that's on console available to play on xCloud?
Yeah, and that would then push me over to just upgrade my current PC Game Pass to just Ultimate, just so I can play it anywhere. I'm hoping they come up with like some sort of TV application that this will work out. Have you tried
to see if you can like Chromecast it or mirror?
So I had success with Chromecasting it, but there's such a bad input lag because
Okay.
there's already a little bit of input lag to
Okay.
streaming it, and then streaming it again to your Chromecast is this the
Okay.
but that there's no native Chromecast support with it. I have to Chromecast my entire phone,
Right. Okay.
which tends to be a worse experience whether there's native support. So if they could put native Chromecast support in it, that little box in the corner that lets you cast it, that would be a better experience. So if they work on that and add that feature to it, then I would be sold instantly on XCloud in the future.
It's just always fascinating to me what devices are supported or not supported. We've been looking at NBC's streaming service Peacock. They've been advertising like crazy. It doesn't work on Amazon Fire Stick or on Roku. Like,
yeah, Google was actually giving away a 3-month subscription to it, so I picked it up, and the app is kind of trash. And $5 a month you pay, you still get commercials. So, but that's another discussion.
yeah.
Okay, so here's where Microsoft's going. It was also revealed that they're discontinuing Xbox Live Gold 12-month cards. It sounds like they're discontinuing them in the Microsoft Store specifically, and it might move over to all retail partners in the next couple months.
They're getting rid of their Microsoft stores anyway.
Yeah,
as a whole.
like the Microsoft.com store.
Okay.
Specifically, that's still like a big storefront for them. But this makes sense. They're still going to sell the 1 and 3 month card. I think just to hold people over to September, because I think the big push with Game Pass Ultimate is going to be the only way to access Xbox Live. They're not going to have multiple tiers. They're just going to tell everyone to move up to the $15 tier. Some people will complain, but if you really love the ecosystem, you're probably willing to pay the extra $5.
And you get so much
then
stuff.
Get all the additional features.
There's so much stuff that's coming with that. It's not like, oh, it's just $5 to play online. Like, no, you're already paying $10 to play online. You're paying $5 for a ridiculously large library that you could potentially play wherever the hell you want.
Yeah, so this makes sense, and they're basically just trying to like get people slowly off Xbox Live, I guess, to move up to Ultimate. You can still stack cards. Like, I don't know if they're gonna like do like a recall with the retail partners, or just tell retail partners sell through your stock, and that'll be it. So some people will be able to just stack up their Xbox
don't expect
Live
it to
if
get
they
marked
want.
down though.
No, yeah, don't expect the profit on those are terrible.
Well, yeah,
for retail partners.
Retailers aren't going to be in a hurry to get rid of them either. They're just they don't take up very much space, and then if the other ones come in, then they'll just take them off the floor entirely. So you're not going to see a markdown on
yeah,
it.
And they'll collect dust in the back or be destroyed. So this makes sense. Just discontinue that, just so you can push for next gen Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. It's just going to be interesting. If you're really against the idea of subscribing to Game Pass Ultimate, then you probably should buy the 12-month cards now and stack through 2030 or whatever. I don't really know what the process is for converting your Live to Ultimate Game Pass. I know there was a way to do it, but just be wary of that if you do decide that like you want to upgrade Live to Ultimate Game Pass. I don't know exactly how you would do that, so you might want to do research on whether it's like worth like stacking your Live just to get it at a cheaper price than having to pay Ultimate Game Pass.
Yeah, but then like I almost feel like in 6 or 8 months, if you decide that you want Ultimate or you want Game Pass, like you're gonna be paying twice or something.
That's what I'm saying. That's why don't no one like think about it before you decide like, oh, let me just like buy 5 cards and be good until 2025. Like,
right.
Think about it before you do that, because you might then be like, Game Pass sounds pretty cool, and be like, shit, what do I do with all these extra years?
Well, you talked about this week. You tweeted about it this week, and we have a question that we'll answer later about it. But these links or these articles that have been slowly coming out over the last couple of days have got me seriously thinking about picking up an Xbox One. Like, very, very
yes.
seriously thinking about picking up an Xbox One. And that all-digital version is looking very, very interesting to me because just for Game Pass Ultimate. Like, and if there's something that comes... Like, well, here's the deal. Like, if something comes out on... And it's not a rip on them, but if something comes out on Xbox that I really want to buy, I can buy it on PC. Or I can buy it digitally.
That's basically how I've been...
Yeah, or I can buy it digitally on Xbox. But nothing will be only on Xbox One or only on Series X. It'll always be Xbox and PC, which is great and totally fine. And if it's a game that doesn't run on the Xbox One very well, I can not run it very well on my PC, but maybe a little bit better.
Yeah. At least it would be on par with the current
Right.
generation.
But the options of the difference, and Game Pass Ultimate for PC is already great value, or Game Pass for PC is already a great value. The console version is far superior than the PC version. And to get all of that stuff for 50 cents a day is like a steal.
Oh yeah, for sure. But you mentioned, the all digital edition. Microsoft is actually ending manufacturing for the Xbox One X and Xbox One S digital edition. So this is just them getting ready as they probably move production lines to start making Series X's. The statement that was given to IGN is as follows. At Xbox, we're making massive investments to forge a future of gaming, a future that puts the player at the center of the Xbox experience. We continue to build great games for Xbox One. We continue to build out Game Pass, all that stuff. As we ramp up for the future of Xbox Series X, we're taking a natural step of stopping production of Xbox One X, Xbox One S All Digital Edition. Xbox One S will continue to be manufactured and sold globally. So the Xbox One S that has a disk drive will continue to be made, but the Xbox One X and the All Digital Edition, they are stopping production on. It just makes sense. I think this is a great move because me and Dave are always talking about the confusion of all the SKUs in the market, and they're making their lives easier by getting rid of some of these.
But I also
SKUs.
think that it is an admission of a mistake that both of these did not do well or well enough. Because if they did well enough, they would still be. Because like the Xbox One X is supposed to be the most powerful console of this generation.
Yes.
And they're like, hey, we're going to discontinue production of that. Granted, the Series X is a step up, but this generation of Xbox One family has had 3 or 4 different iterations on its hardware, and now you have now discontinued, at the end of this, you have discontinued 3 versions of the 4 versions of hardware.
Yes, which they had to do, I think, going into the next generation, just because it would have just been a cluster, and retail partners don't have the space.
Right.
For
so now you're going to see
all of this.
You're going to see at launch, if you walk into any retailer, you're going to see Xbox One, and then you're going to see Xbox Series X, and you're going to see what we believe you're going to see 2 iterations of the Xbox Series X.
Yeah, which at this point I'm thinking it's just going to be a diskless version. I don't know if it's going to be a
less powerful version. Yeah.
Yeah, that just doesn't make sense to me at this point.
If they do that, it would be 3 versions of it. You'd have Xbox One, you'd have Xbox Series X disc, you'd have Xbox Series Xbox Series X diskless, and then you'd have whatever Project Lionheart is or isn't.
Yeah, and I don't. The way I'm still a little confused that they're getting rid of the digital one. I thought that one would just be the cheapest one to manufacture, but I guess it makes sense to get rid of it just because the disc one, there's still discs in the store, so you need to give people the option to.
But the digital one is so much
have access.
Cheaper than the discs one, as I've been looking around.
Yeah, it's really tempting, especially like. Phil Spencer, I think, reiterated again last week that, there won't be an exclusive for years. Like, he used years now instead of 18 months.
I want to talk about that, and I want to address that. I've had a community member reach out to me, and I didn't necessarily 100% misspeak or misunderstand. So it is no Microsoft or no Xbox Studio first-party games. We know that already. I thought that it was no game can run on Series X without running on Xbox One. So as an example, I thought, and I use Rainbow Six Quarantine as an example, that if Ubisoft chose to make Rainbow Six Quarantine as a next generation only game, meaning PC, PS5, Series X, that meant Microsoft would not allow it on the Series X platform until their initial time frame had expired, however long that time frame was, allegedly 18 months from launch. That is not the case. There are games that are coming exclusively, or not exclusively, that are coming only to Series X and not Xbox One. As an example, we heard this week Overcooked, Full Cook Edition or whatever it's called, Overcooked 2 Full Cook Edition is coming to,
or whatever.
Yeah, is coming to Xbox Series X and is not coming to Xbox One.
Yes.
Now,
which,
is that going to fall in the 18-month window? I don't know. They didn't date it.
yeah, I mean that makes sense. I feel like that clarification needed to happen for that, or they need to do a better job of clarifying that, because I still feel like they have been like pretty straightforward with how they're doing stuff, and I can totally understand why we had the misconception.
Yeah, Phil Spencer only speaks for his studios.
Which makes sense, but like to the average person, and even to us, you know, like
because when I was going back and forth, with Darren, and I explained the situation to him, and he was like, "Holy crap!" And then he's like, "Wow, okay, I get what you're saying. That's weird." And then he sent me another article, and in that article, it actually had a couple of games listed. But and just to be clear, I still don't like this position that Xbox has taken. I don't agree with this position personally, because it will, in the long run, hold back next gen gaming.
Yeah, it will hold back. It will hold it back. I kind of like the Sony generational stuff, though I wish they had backwards compatibility.
But them saying that Hellblade 2 will run on Xbox One and Series X is holding back the potential for Hellblade 2.
Yes, because they can't go all out because they still needed to run on the console from 2013.
Right.
I think is when.
But it also doesn't like we finally saw the PlayStation 5. We saw what they're going to attempt to put on the PlayStation 5. And at least me personally, fanboy or not fanboy, or you can think what you want to think, what they showed me tempted me enough to say, I kind of want that. As a reference to
Ratchet
PS5.
And Clank demo alone.
Yeah, as a reference to, I kind of want PS5. They still, to this day, Microsoft as being they, have done nothing to make me as a consumer say, I want Series X. Because when I think in my head, I want Series X, okay, why do you want it? Well, I want to play this. Well, I can play it on the PC, or it'll run okay on the Xbox One. I don't have a TV to take full advantage of 4K and HDR and all that stuff, so what do I really need it for? Versus, I can only play Horizon 2, Ratchet and Clank. I can't even think of the name right now. The new Ratchet and Clank, and I can only play Spider-Man Morales. I can only play those games on PS5.
Yeah. No, I'm in the same boat with you. Going into the next generation, I do want an Xbox Series X just so I can cover it a little bit better than covering them through PC. But in terms of like financial reasons, like I'm gonna buy a PlayStation console and use my PC for the Xbox exclusives until like it financially makes sense.
Well,
because
the only place you can play Ratchet and Clank is on PlayStation. And like in our chat, like Bad's a member of the community, Bad76. Like, it's not about Sony take my money. It's about you're showing me something that I'm willing to pay for. And again, I don't have blinders on anymore. Like, they're gone. Like, there's a whole perspective out there in gaming. Like, everybody needs to take the blinders off and look at the platform and where you want to play and how you want to play, and ask those questions to yourself. It can't just be it can't just be like, I buy this because of Naughty Dog. You can't do that anymore. You're cutting yourself short. You're cutting yourself off at the knees. But the companies need to produce content that is a reason to buy that. You buy a new car because it has better gas mileage than your other car, or it has more storage space than your other car, or you get another phone because it runs better, or it runs your apps better, or supports something else better, or it has face unlock, or it has touch animations and all that stuff. The Series X right now, from a software standpoint, is not releasing any software that I want because I can play that software on something else.
Yeah, especially now that you have gotten into PC gaming. Like, you found out your PC can handle most games to where it's just like, okay.
Yeah, that can I run it website or whatever. I can run 97% of the games released on Steam at average or above average settings. So like, I'm like, okay,
which is like the highest setting on an Xbox One or a PS4.
So and again, like, anybody that's been listening to me talk about this for years, like, I think that games look cool, like, but I'm not the person that's going to sit there and say, well, that fucking tree popped in 184 feet away. What the hell kind of shit is this?
Yeah.
Like I
As
don't
long as the
do
frame
that.
rate isn't garbage, you'll play it.
It's got to be something like oh that tree leaf is too boxy. Like shut up. like I hate that. Like okay,
I still don't quite understand screen tearing.
Yeah, I don't. And I see frame rate when I switch. Like when I'm okay. Like again, when I play Destiny on PC for a week and then I switch to console, I'm like, and I first do it for the first half hour, it's like whoa, and then after that, it's better.
Yeah, you fall into your
my
groove
eyes get used to the same thing about people like, I can't use that controller. Shut up. Yes, you can. When your hand gets used to it in 25 minutes, you'll be fine. It'll feel a little weird at first. You'll push the wrong button. Who gives a damn? But like this whole thing of like, I'm going to hold on to, like, I'm tethered to this or, like I'll use my son as an example. Oh, this OtterBox phone case is too bulky. Shut up, and when you get used to it after an hour, it'll be fine. It's going to protect your phone better. Like, stop it. Like, it's a car, it's a hoodie, it's a pair of shoes, it's a pair of jeans, it's it's any of that stuff. Like, just give your body give your body a chance to get used to it and adjust to it, and don't be like, I'm only going to wear the mask that goes above my forehead because that's the only thing. Like, stop it. Like, just you'll learn, you'll adapt, you'll adjust, and you'll be fine. But this is bullcrap because that there was it's not going to do this or do that, or they're going to have a performance mode on it. Shut up! Like, the developers know what they're doing, like, and they know how to make a game that's going to be the best experience for the user. And if you don't like it, don't play it.
Like, yeah. No. I don't. Dave's got to cool off now. But I completely agree. Like, it just, people like lock themselves in too much and pick, like, I stopped like nitpicking all little graphical things at a certain point, and it's just like, okay, all I care now about is frame rate. Yeah. And I don't care if it's 30 or 60. I just want it to be consistent. Yeah. That's the only thing I care about. I can get used to 30. I can get used to 60. Like, and I don't want to. As long as it doesn't drop.
I don't want to rail on it because I haven't played it even for a second yet. But looking at social media this week, when Ghost of Tsushima's best feature is photo mode, your game has a problem. Like, and I don't know the story. I don't know the characters. I've seen a little bit of stuff on the Facebook group about it's going both ways, back and forth on the Facebook group. I haven't touched the game.
Which I've been surprised by.
Yeah. I haven't touched the game at all. But when I scroll through Twitter and everybody talks about, look at this vista, look at this black and white mode, look at this pretty color tree, look at all the sunset. I'm like, where's the gifts of cutting somebody's head off or having an awesome gameplay moment or where you're stabbing somebody?
Oh my God, dude.
Like, where are those? Like, and it's a huge problem. People were talking about Last of Us 2, and I'm not comparing the two games as like why can't one be like the other? They're two separate studios. They're two separate things. But people were talking about moments that happen in the Last of Us narrative, moments that happen in your mind while playing the narrative, along with the game looking cool. And the only thing I see from people from Ghost of Tsushima is like, oh, I can't get really past this. The photo mode's the best feature. That's not good.
Yeah, no, dude. I can't. I'm so glad you said it. If I see one more goddamn sunset on Twitter from that game, I might block the person. Like, it's so frustrating. Like, because I just want to know about the game. Like, I ended up getting a copy of the game, but I haven't touched it yet. And I'm kind of afraid to, because people are like, oh, the gameplay elements, like the open world stuff's not that great. And I'm just like, oh, that would be the reason I would play the game. But then they like just show pictures of photo mode, and I'm just like, oh, okay, cool. I might download that as a phone background, but I don't want to play it. Like,
I mean, I have valid concerns when people that I trust as reviewers, like one of the reviewers that I trust, that I read what she writes, says that she had to fight the urge near the second half of the game to not pick up her phone during cutscenes.
Yeah, that scares me. I mean, I'm gonna get into the game this week, but there's a lot of things about the game that I feel like I'm going to be disappointed.
And again, I didn't want to turn this in, but that's the most current release game out there right now, like the thing that's trending, and it's all over the place. And again, like going back to the Metacritic thing we talked about, like there are people that are like, the story is kind of bland and boring. The vistas look really cool. The combat's interesting, but I really wasn't grabbed by the game. 9.2. What?
Yeah, no, like some of it makes no sense with like how that game's being reviewed. And I'm also seeing the opposite where people are like trashing the shit out of the game. Yeah. You know, it's just like, what? I mean, GameSpot said like you couldn't cut bamboo, and then
Yeah.
they put that in their negative thing, and I'm just like, well, I'm confused.
Yeah,
I think that was
again,
more of a joke.
I've never held myself to the score. Like I want to read the context of what the person is trying to portray, whether it's audio, visual, or written word. But when you're sitting there in trying to explain why you think this thing is the best thing ever, or why you think this thing has tremendous problems, and then you just toe the line in the middle and give it an 8 or an 8.5, like, because you're worried that somebody's gonna like immediately click on your link and scroll to the bottom, look at your score, and then send you a terrible tweet, there's a problem. Like, you can't let the public persona of looking at the score right away change what, like when you write something that, that was always a concern of mine when I was a writer. I would have a friend of mine read it. Like, what is, and then I would be like, what's your feeling of what you think this score is? I already had a score and you weren't going to change my mind. But if you were within a half a point or a point of what I was thinking, I usually felt a little better. But if I'm sitting there in my head thinking I wrote a review that's a 6 and you're telling me it reads like an 8.5, there's something wrong.
Yeah, no, that I totally would have people read my review without a score and then be like, what do you think my score would be for this? And then they would tell me a number and I'd be like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Sometimes
a
it'd be like,
stressful
oh, it's a
moment,
little off.
but it also goes both ways. If I'm thinking that this game is an 8.5 and it reads like a 6, like, I'm not portraying my message correctly.
Yeah.
And I feel like
definitely see that.
That is the case on 7 out of 10 reviews I read for Ghost of Tsushima, where I read the review and I was like, wow, this guy's really not really enjoying this game. 8.5. What?
Yeah. No, and I saw that, and I'm sure if we dug into it, we'll see that with a lot of AAA games. It just happens, Ghost is the most recent one.
Yeah, and it's a game I'm on the personal fence about, and that's why I'm doing more and more research to it, and the more and more research I see to it, the more inconsistencies I see. Versus, again, I enjoyed Last of Us 1. I was getting Last of Us 2. I don't care if the most trusted reviewer in my life said, I'm giving this game a 4. It's terrible. I wanted to play the game because I wanted to continue the story of Ellie. Just like when and if the next God of War continues from the Kratos in this world with I can't think of his name right now, with the kid, I will play that game because I want to see how that story continues. Regardless of if they made a terrible gameplay choice and they turned the camera as a top down, I want to see how the story continues of what the groundwork and the foundation that they built. And I hope I hope in the next 3 to 4 months or 6 months there's a PC game and an Xbox game that draws me the same way.
Yeah, and hopefully we find out about that later this week. That there's something we're excited about that also has enough going for it that we want to buy hardware for that we don't necessarily have to buy. So we'll see about that. That is all I had for the news. A lot of Microsoft stuff. We have the Microsoft event for first-party titles. I think there might be some third-party titles with it. It seems kind of weird on some of the messaging. We will do a special podcast dedicated to that event like we did for the PlayStation one, so we'll probably jump into all these conversations we just had during that event and then break down all the different games. And it's going to be interesting for me and Dave just because, we come from a PlayStation background, so some of the franchises that they'll bring back, we might have no experience. There's a lot of rumors Fable will be announced.
Yeah, there's going to be no emotional attachment to a name or a franchise. There's going to be of interest and And then the thing that's going to suck about this the most is that I enjoyed being at the Xbox press conference last year. I was fortunate enough to request an invite and get in even when I was covering PlayStation. Because they would do PlayStation, they would do announcements there that would eventually come to PlayStation. But just to see an Xbox franchise get announced or a sequel to the franchise get announced, and to hear the crowd and adjust to and their excitement to go up and down, we won't get that on this event. So I won't be sitting next to somebody that's be like, oh my God, they're doing that. Oh, what is that? Oh, this is this. Like we won't have that. It'll just be our personal perspective of, hey, that looks really cool. I don't know that it's a continuation or a spinoff from this series.
I'll know that stuff, but I won't have like that history with specific stuff. Like if they announce a new Fable, I'm going to be excited about that. I know enough about Fable, but I also didn't play all the Fable games from beginning to end, so my excitement will be a little bit like, cool, a new Fable game? I have no idea if that's a new character or not.
Right.
I won't have that history, but we want to expand our horizons, and a lot of these Xbox games, or all these Xbox games, me and Dave will have access to through Game Pass on PC, so we will be playing them this holiday. Or hopefully we will be, because we'll be excited enough to download them on our PC and put the time in and play the game.
Right.
I want to do a spoiler cast for an Xbox specific game because we just did one for a PlayStation specific game. I would love to do that. I would love Nintendo to do something.
I want an Xbox game to carry enough weight to do that, and they haven't done that the entire Xbox One generation. I'm sorry. I know that from like there really has not been a game that has carried that kind of weight. Yeah, and maybe Halo, but
even my friends that are super into Halo, when I ask them,
since 343 took over, it hasn't been all flowers and roses.
Yeah, they've been good, but when they talk about Halo 2 and Halo 3, those are like their favorite games of all time. 10 out of 10, best experience ever. And then when I tell like, how was the last Halo game? They're like, it was all right. It was good. Like that. I feel like that was kind of Microsoft this whole current generation of like Gears came out. It was all right. It was good.
It was cool.
Nothing terrible.
I got to shoot stuff with my buddy, and it was an interesting story, and it was cool to see the story continue, but it didn't do anything innovative or above reproach. So
yeah, it didn't keep me talking about it past the credits. So hopefully they have that, which could be Hellblade for me, coming from Microsoft.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. All right, Dave, take it away for the next segment.
What we're playing and watching, what I played and watched was how to install a tent, how to set up chairs, how to figure out COVID-safe food, and how to deal with a high-maintenance 18-year-old daughter. A lot of my week last week was spent working on my daughter's graduation party, which all happened the other day and came to fruition. I dabbled very slightly in Destiny because I've got a crew of 4 or 5 people that are trying to get some raids done, try to get these emblems done, and checking off some boxes in Moment in Triumph. So I was on and off Destiny an hour and a half, periodically here or there. Again, very easy to sit down, jump in, get a group, do what we got to do, and bounce off. And I was able to do that mostly because it's been hot as hell in Michigan. So mostly I'd come down in the basement to kind of cool off. For those of you who can see on Twitch and know and seen pictures of me, like I'm bald as hell, and I'm white. I'm white, and I sunburn very easily. Michael has seen me sunburn waiting in line for a press conference.
Oh man, yeah. I hurt just looking at him sometimes.
And I'm not always an intelligent enough human being to remember to put a hat on. So I did sunburn myself one day working in the backyard. So just trying to
was
cool
it you
off.
or Emra that had a visor 1E3?
I don't wear visors, so it wasn't me.
Okay, I think it was Emra.
I felt like I went to 1E3 and I didn't take a hat with me, and then going forward, I think I had a hat on every other time you saw me through. I think I bought a hat during that E3 and I never took it off. That was that nice PlayStation fitted, elastic fitted hat I had.
And I remember.
And then going forward, it's been a lot of different.
Fucking fanboy.
Yeah, and then going forward, it's been a lot of different Tiger hats and stuff like that. So.
I think it was Emra that wore a visor one year, or he found a visor or something.
Still cooked the top of his head. Emra's not even bald, but he keeps his hair shorter than I do.
Yes, yeah. Oh man.
So unfortunately, playing and watching it wasn't a whole lot. I do have a funny story. My nephews were in town. I've got a handful of nephews, 4 of them that are from like the age 12 to like 24. They're my brother's kids, and they dabble in video games too. I play Destiny with my oldest nephew. My youngest nephew plays a lot of Fortnite and Warzone, so they were kind of playing that with my oldest son. And then they kind of got Owen into Fortnite.
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, even though he can't really do anything. And then one of them told Owen that Fortnite is on a phone.
Oh no.
Yeah, and Owen was begging my wife, Angela, to download it onto his phone. That game is like 8.5 gigs on a phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's a full ass video game.
Yeah, and so she I think she slyly deleted it like the day after he played it on the phone for a little bit, and I don't think he's asked for it again since the nephews have left. So yeah, that was a interesting thing of where like they were teaching him how to play Fortnite and he didn't know how to swim or how to switch weapons, or he's 4.5. So
you may have dodged a bullet.
Hopefully. So
make sure she turns off her credit card on that phone so he doesn't accidentally buy some stuff, and then you end up one of those parents.
Unfortunately, I have a feeling this will be downloaded on to our Switch soon. But he doesn't. I think he can go into creative mode and mess around.
If you think your Joy-Con drift is bad now, wait till you let your 4-year-old play Fortnite.
Oh no, he's gonna play with a drifted Joy-Con. He's not gonna use.
Okay, you're not gonna give him your new controllers that you bought, right?
Yeah, and apparently, and when Owen has been dabbling around and playing, he has finished as high as 6.
Okay,
So
I don't know if that says something about how good your son is or how bad Fortnite is.
Yeah, I mean, maybe in like a year, maybe I won't have to do anything because he'll be a professional Fortnite player at 5.5 years old.
He's gonna dye his hair blue, and he's
Yeah.
just gonna be sitting in your
And
desk chair.
he'll be backpack boy.
Yeah, there you go.
So that's it for playing and watching for me, though.
Okay. All right. So I have two things to talk about. First one, Dave will be very excited because he was very disappointed he couldn't do it. We were given the opportunity to play Watch Dogs Legion for roughly 3 hours. This was a stream demo through Parsec, which was actually a really good experience. Parsec is just a remote in software with a super low latency. So I was able to. We got
this email and I was so depressed. And I text Michael. I'm like,
because it was one day away from you being off for 2 days.
I'm like, hey, you want to play this? Because I can't.
And even then, I had to like talk to Sarah and be like, hey, can you work on the laptop? Because I need the computer your last 3 hours of work to play this video game. So I got to play 3 hours of Watch Dogs Legion, and I walked away with it very impressed. So they kind of dropped us into the game. They said roughly like halfway through the game, I had 11 characters to choose from, and in this section of the game, which I had a huge chunk of the map to work with, I was able to just do the converting missions or the recruitment missions for any of the NPCs that were walking around. So I started the game with like a soccer hooligan, like soccer mom. Like she looked kind of like drunk and busted, and she just had some, she just looked kind of sloppy, and she had like the I don't know what the redneck version of an English person is, but she had that voice.
That's Michael at digitaldaysgaming.com.
Chav, I forget exactly what the term is, but I got to play as her for a little bit, and I did some recruitment missions for other people. This was like the big question like me and Dave had going into this game, is like, how does the recruitment stuff work? And like the previous Watch Dogs games, you can point your phone at like any NPC and you'll get a little bit of biography for that character, a little insight on their life. In Watch Dogs Legion, now that information tells you their affiliation with the group that you're with, DedSec or whatever, and also lets you know what weapon they use, what skills they use. And then there's also some characters that it would tell you that there's a chance the character could perma-die and can die permanently. And that would be the basis you would go off of if you wanted to recruit that person. And everyone seems to have some ability with a gun. Like everyone seems to be like, okay, they're good with handguns, they're good with shotguns. This person's a pacifist, they only use melee weapons. Here's what technology background they bring, whether they're a drone expert or a hacking expert. Though every character has a little bit of hacking ability because the smartphone, it can just kind of do everything. So I went on several missions because in this 3 hour chunk, they only had two story missions for us to do, and we just had the open world. And Dave knows me. If you get me an open world, tell me do what you want, I'm not going to do the main mission. I'm going to just try and do whatever I can.
How many origin missions did you do?
I ended up doing 2 or 3, or 2 full ones and then a half of one because time ran out.
How different did they feel?
Not very different. They were pretty generic in terms of... So one of the first one was the person was having issues with their work organization. So you needed to find out what her work was doing, and you found out that her work was actually going to replace her and her team with an AI. She was like a software engineer. Mm-hmm. So then, in order to recruit the person, once you gave them that information, that person wanted you to destroy that AI. Mm-hmm. So then you went into their office building and destroyed their AI. And then once you did that, you had access to that person on your team. So then at that point, I had 12 people to choose from. There was the story mission involved you needing to get a cop. And to do the mission, just because it was like you needed to break into, I forget what the police force in this game is called.
Anvil?
But you need something with an A.
Yeah.
You needed to recruit one of these cops to get into like one of their forts that they built up, or one of the buildings they took over and used as a headquarters. So you needed to help this guy help his friend who was trying to get like medical equipment to like do whatever he needed to do. So that involved you trying to figure out where the medical equipment went, and then once you found out where the medical equipment was, steal it from that headquarters. And once you stole it and dropped it off to the person, you then had that person available to you to do the missions.
Okay.
And there was another one that I did that was actually way simpler than that. It was just like a homeless person who was being harassed by someone. So then I had to wait to a specific time that the homeless person said that they were being harassed. And once they were being harassed, I then beat up the person that was harassing them. And once I did that, then the person was like, okay, I'm on your team.
Right.
That one was a little easier because that person was already kind of sided with my organization. Like he agreed with the organization. So the work there was a lot less, as opposed to the officer who was, an officer. So converting him took a little bit more work.
Now, when you said you had to go get a cop, like did the campaign kind of steer you in that direction to recruit that cop?
It made it seem like, hey, you need a cop to do this. And once I got into the area, it was very obvious that like if I try to bring anyone into it, it would have had it turn into a shootout. And it probably wouldn't have worked story-wise. But it was only one mission that I needed a specific type, not a specific person.
Okay.
So I could have got a different officer if I wanted, but they recommended one specific officer to me. But that's because I didn't have an officer already recruited.
Okay, so it is something that we talked about that we are concerned about, of them steering you in a certain recruitment direction.
Yeah, but I would love to have tested it. Like if I got to play the demo again, if I already had a different officer, would have I had to recruit that specific officer? Mm-hmm. So that at least answered some of the questions we had about like how varied this is going to be. I think the missions will be generic enough. Like there was at least some variety here, but based on how many, there was a ton of NPCs walking around. Yeah. I could have picked anyone. Mm-hmm. Those just happened to be the ones I picked. I did jump around between the ones that they already had recruited. Because again, when I started the demo, there was like, I think 11 people recruited already that I could jump between. So I started with like the soccer hooligan. And then I switched to a construction worker and did the story mission. And it was really cool because I didn't know the next mission was going to take place at a construction site. So when I picked the construction worker and had to break into the construction site, I got to just walk right through. And this mission looked like it would have been annoying as hell to do stealth as any other character. But because I had a construction worker, I was able to just kind of like walk into the mission, and just, it was almost too easy. Where I was like, oh, maybe I should have picked a different character. I mean, it was cool that I was able to do that.
They had some of those elements in Watch Dogs 2 where you kind of like dressed differently to look like you fit the part. And now I think that they're, in Hitman, I feel like had that with like some of the decoy and stuff that they would do with like the costumes in Hitman.
And this totally has that that vibe to it.
But I think that the costumes are being replaced by NPCs.
Yeah, the costumes are being NPCs, and I guess for more story-based missions like the one with the cop, they want specific ones to progress the story. So my favorite character that I played was the one we saw in the last set of trailers, the spy, like the older woman who happens to be like a like a MI5 super spy. And this was cool because all the characters play completely different. A construction worker just had a wrench and like a spider drone. But it was all, it was all melee focused when I got into some shit.
He didn't have a staple gun?
No, I didn't have a staple gun for this particular one.
Okay.
Because this was a different construction worker than the one we saw in the trailer. Yeah. Which is cool, which means like not all construction workers are going to have the same abilities. So the spy woman was actually the most fun. I felt like a badass playing as the spy because the gun handling was significantly better. The specific gun she was using was better than any other gun that I handled with all the NPCs. I can't even call them NPCs anymore. They're actually playable characters. Yeah. So we might have to change the terminology when it comes to this game.
PCs.
So when just playable characters. And I had a lot of fun playing with this character to where I ended up using her for a good chunk of the game just because I was just her access was, because of her weapons and stuff like that, she didn't really have access to all the different things that I had to do for some of the side missions, the recruitment missions. So I just went guns blazing with her character, and it was really fun. And there is an element. So I mentioned permadeath earlier. Some characters don't actually get permadeath. So my spy got shot. I thought she was dead. Some characters, when they get shot and killed, they just go to jail for a little bit. And there's then a timer. So when the spy got killed during my demo, there was a 30-minute timer to when I can pick the spy up again.
See, I thought that unless it's changed since they showed it to us and I got to play it in E3, I thought that is like once you got downed the first time, you had the choice to give up and get captured or to get back up, like to get a second wind. And if you got downed again during that mission, you were done.
So in this particular instance, that may very well be the case. I put myself in a situation to where I was cornered and I had no way of backing up or
so it didn't,
I give up.
It didn't give you the option when you got downed or killed, quote unquote killed, to fight back, or you just immediately went to jail?
I just that character went to jail and then it just immediately jumped me to another character in my roster. I don't know if it was the different weapons, because a lot of the police in this game, or the officers, whatever they are, some of them have non-lethal weapons, so I just got hit with a non-lethal weapon, okay, as opposed to where if I'm fighting some other organization in a game that only have lethal weapons.
Okay.
So in this particular instance, my character went down, and I had no choice on give up or not. It was character went down, ended up in jail, and then they just throw me in the next character in my roster.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
It just gave me the.
It just seemed to be a very predominant, risk reward thing of you might and that's a question I've always had, is that you liked your spy. You're going to have a physical attachment to that character because the gameplay fits how you want to play the game. And then you either go into a mission that's not built to that character's strength, or you just mess up and you make a mistake or you alert something much sooner than you anticipated and you die. There's the loss was supposed to have high stakes, and if they've changed that, I missed that they changed it, or they didn't communicate that they changed it, or it just wasn't available in your demo.
It might have not have been available in my demo. They might have used non-lethal weapons. I had 2 characters basically get arrested while I played. And they both just went to jail, and then when I got to play as the next character, it was okay, we have our lawyers on the case. If you get the AI, I forget what his name is, he basically told me we can go break them out now. You can recruit a specific character that will cut their time in half. I'm guessing a lawyer type character. Or we could just wait out the clock. Those are my options to get my spy back.
No, that's cool.
I looked at the way to break out the character,
yeah,
and it looked like it was going to be a hell of a battle, so I basically just let them sit in jail.
Yeah, but then I also hope it's longer than 30 minutes.
I do too, because it seemed kind of crazy, because technically when my spy went down, she had killed quite a lot of people.
Yeah.
But
so it doesn't build any tension of holy crap, I might die or I might get captured. I need to get away because I'm going to lose this character for 30 minutes, or I'm going to lose this character for 4 hours. So I mentioned earlier, when you look at NPCs, it gives you stats in terms of their affiliation, their weapon of choice, and their skill. Some NPCs I noticed had something marked under them saying I forget exactly the wording, but it said character could permanently die, and not every NPC had that marked down. I don't know how they do that, right.
How they determine which character can permanently die, not knowing the situation it could be in, but that was something present on some NPCs.
And I guess I hope, if that is the case in the game, which is fine, I hope that character has a tribute or a trait or an ability that warrants the effort to recruit them and to make it again, this is really great that this character can do ABC, but I still have to be careful because if I get caught or if I die, it's over.
Yeah. So that's gonna be a fine line, and that will be something that we won't know until we get like extended amount of time.
Hmm.
But overall, like uh, the gameplay was good.
Awesome.
I can't really judge too much about the shooting. I was playing, on a remote in PC, so there might have been a little bit of input lag here
It's
and there, but
Watch
it's
Dogs.
kind of hard to
The
tell.
first two games weren't great shooters and they weren't great drivers. Like the it's just not. That's kind of just like the way. Like that's a thing that you can do. It didn't have like a unique sniping aspect to it. Watch Dogs 2 was a lot about the gadgets and the gizmos and going through the vents with the remote control car, and then it's more about the characters than it was about the guns. It's always been the way that you approach the encounters, and I guess, did it feel unique enough that you could see the possibility of multiple ways to play each mission?
For sure. Outside of the
Okay.
one mission where they told me I needed to play a cop,
Yeah.
the other missions, like the construction site and some of the recruitment missions, I saw the different possibilities. And when they tell you, they give you like a brief breakdown of like what the mission entails, like a location and all that stuff.
Hmm.
And I could see based on my characters, like, okay, this one would be better for this situation, this one would be
Okay.
better for this situation. But I saw multiple characters that could do these missions and completely different play styles from which character I picked.
And then
Like I could have picked the spy for the construction mission, and that would have turned into like a whole action game.
Mhm.
Or I could have picked a more like stealth-like character that uses a lot more gadgets and made that a stealth game. Or the construction worker, I just walked right to the door I needed to go to, in and out.
And then do you get that mission briefing and then you get to select the character?
Well, you can switch between characters at any time.
Okay.
So it just kind of tells you the briefing mission, and it's just up to you if whether you want to like go into the menu and swap out a character or not.
Okay.
So it's fully up to me. Like they could have told me, like, hey, pick the construction worker for this mission, but the game didn't tell me that. I just happened to switch to construction worker because I wanted the nail gun that I saw in the trailer, and unfortunately I didn't have the nail gun.
All right. Go ahead.
No. So overall, like I like the way it played. The shooting felt fine even with the little bit of input lag. I'm glad you mentioned the driving wasn't always great because I thought the driving was kind of bad.
It's bad. It's bad.
Yeah, yeah, and not just because I was driving on the opposite side of the road, which threw me off a couple times.
It's very
just felt
floaty.
kinda
It's very floaty, slidey
yeah.
feeling. Yeah. I mean, but again, it's just like that's not what it's a way to get from point A to point B in the games. Like how so I guess like how big did the map feel or how big was the map looking? Because I don't know London, but I don't think London's much bigger than San Francisco area. I mean, it might be bigger than San Francisco. Like the last game took place in San Francisco, the first game took place in Chicago. Is it like an overly abundant world, or is it relatively compact?
So I didn't have like the full map, or at least available to me, or at least it didn't seem like it. At least I hope I didn't, because it felt kind of small.
Okay.
Some like points were on one end to the other end of the map, and that seemed like it kind of took a while. But then when I looked at it, I was like, oh, it's only 800 meters from one end to the other, sort of situation.
Okay.
So I couldn't get a really good idea of like how big the final game's going to be based on what I had, because a lot of my missions were kind of confined to an area, despite the map being kind of big. I don't know if that's just the way the game was, built for this demo, of just like, hey, we're going to all have all the missions just confined to this area, no matter what mission you pick, because they only have 3 hours to play. We don't want them driving for a good chunk of
absolutely, yeah.
chunk of the game.
Controlled vertical slice for sure. Like, and that's great. Like the fact that Ubisoft gave us that opportunity and was able to make it work in this COVID world is awesome and fast and fantastic. And we really, really appreciate the opportunity. And super jealous that he got to play this game. Like super, super jealous.
Yeah, I was excited to play it, and then I'm just glad it worked. Because I was worried about internet connection and all that stuff, because my internet can be a little weird. Yeah. But yeah, I was glad to play it and have an opportunity, and got to answer some of the questions. Like me, every time we talked about this game since last year, just like, how is this NPC stuff's going to work? Is it going to be interesting? And so far, I think it is interesting. I just now it's just like, does that gimmick work for like a 30-hour game that this will probably be? This will probably be a 15-30-hour game.
Right.
Ubisoft games are gigantic. So will this gimmick sustain over a while, or will I get attached to like 3 characters? Because it's like, okay, I need a cop, I need my gun person, and I just need my like throwaway character.
Yeah, and I'm starting to wonder if maybe the origin thing is just the gimmick of the game. Like the recruit any character is just the gimmick of the game, and then you get who you need, and then like halfway through the game, something catastrophic happens, and you have to maybe go do another one, and then a couple hours later, you lose somebody else, or you realize that you need something else, and it's almost going to be kind of like that. Go back and fill in a couple gaps to make this mission a little bit better. And if the origin story aspect of it becomes a throw-in, but the rest of the mission structures are unique enough and the story's good enough to make it fit together, this could be really cool.
Yeah. And I was dropped in halfway through the game, so I already had 11 characters to play with. I want to know, how many characters do I start with? Do I start with one and have to work my way to 11? Would that get tiring to work my way to like that 11 number? I think by the end of the demo, I had like 15 people. And I don't know if there was any more room, but it kind of looked like I filled out that section of the screen, but who knows? So I want to know how that build is in terms of building out a roster. Could someone just get attached to one character and be like, I'm just playing this game as the spy? Or how that will work? How drastic would that be different? How many missions am I forced to get a specific type of character is what I'm interested in. Because then that kind of almost defeats the purpose of the game if I'm like constantly, every major story arc has me have to recruit a specific character.
Right.
But I'm definitely like way more interested in this game now that I'm playing it. Like I was interested before, but it was one of those games where I didn't feel I needed day one. After this demo, I'm like, okay, this is now a conversation of like, will I want to play this day one?
Cool.
As opposed to me being like, maybe.
Yeah, I might want to see what my buddies say or what reviewers say, you know. So, but now it seems like you enjoyed it, and you played it, so that's awesome. Yeah, it comes out end of October 29th, I think they said.
Something like that.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. I have one game to review. This is Crosscode. So we got a code for Crosscode a couple weeks ago, like 2 weeks ago. The game came out last week. This is a 2D action RPG, kind of akin to like the old Zelda games, like the 16-bit era of, or 32-bit era of RPGs. The hook with this game is it takes place inside a MMO called Crossworlds. So it's a game within a game scenario. So we've seen this sort of thing before. The story follows a Spearmancer, that's a character that can shoot like orbs, named Leah, who has amnesia, and through the help of a mystery organization and playing the game, you hope to find out more about your character and why your character has amnesia. The gameplay for this one is kind of dual gameplay. At its core, like a melee like brawler. But there's also like a twin stick shooter mechanic as well, because your character is a Spearmancer, and the gameplay is actually really fun. I really enjoyed the melee combat aspect of the game, and the shooting stuff was really good too. Especially there's over time you upgrade and add different elements to your arsenal that affect that shooting mechanic.
Nice.
This is like a straight up like RPG. There is an absurd amount of like upgrade tree.
And I think that's part of what's scaring me from starting it.
Yeah, so when it first, like, you have like 5 different skill trees that you can level up, each to the specific elements, and then like the one that's just like your like core ability, your basic ability. And it is kind of almost intimidating when you look at it, but once you get in there and you see how many points you get every time you level up, it's really fun, and you can really customize your character to your strengths. Like there's so many different skills that you go one direction or the other, and it drastically changes your character, and you can customize it to your play style, which I really appreciated and got really addicted to kind of grinding out my character. Because when I play an RPG, I like to be overpowered. Like I will grind early so I don't have to grind later.
Mm-hmm.
So I really got into the upgrade tree, and the only problem I had with the upgrades is you get custom like equipment that also affect your you know like your stats. but it actually doesn't change your character cosmetically, which is kind of a bummer. But that's like a small knock against the game because like the character art already is beautiful. The world design's great. So not being able to customize my character isn't too bad because I'm so in love with the character design that they have already. The only thing that kind of bothered me with this game is the dungeons. So the dungeons are very puzzle heavy, like super, super puzzle heavy. We're talking 30 to 60 minutes
Holy crap.
per dungeon.
Oh my gosh.
Puzzle on top of puzzle on top of puzzle. And these are rather difficult puzzles. Like I was banging my head on puzzles often in the game.
How many did you look up?
I looked up one.
Okay.
And it was just because I knew what I was doing, but for some reason, it just wasn't working. And it was one of those annoying things where my angle was slightly off. So a lot of the puzzles involve you shooting your orbs and having them bounce in different directions. So there's a lot of puzzles where you're moving objects around and you have to angle things just right to get your orb.
In a top-down game like that, it could be a challenge to make sure you're at the proper position.
Yeah, and luckily this game came out on PC a year ago, so there was like a walkthrough video, so I was able to like go right to where I was stuck, and I remember just being super annoyed at myself because it was like, oh, I just need to move like half a centimeter to the left, and it's good. The puzzles are interesting. They were fun to play. The only thing that bothered me about them is just it just felt like nonstop because you were in these dungeons and you were like, I'm no joke, like in there for 30 to 60 minutes plus.
Yeah,
like, there's some dungeons where I went over that hour mark and I was just like, shit.
And then there's always that fear, like before you walk into that activity, like, okay, it's X o'clock at night. Like, do I want to do this? Or I have to go to work in 2 hours. Am I going to be able to finish this? There's always that kind of like that fear in your mind. And anytime a game gives you that kind of tension to where it feels like that's a commitment, like it can be a little game breaking to where you're like, if I don't like, and then sometimes if the checkpoint system isn't great, which I don't know if this is or isn't, or if you can walk away in the middle of the dungeon and come back and be there, like I hope you can do that, because we've talked about this game like almost being kind of fit for would be really fun to play on the Switch on the go aspect of it. But if it's requiring maybe that much of a time commitment, that could be something that's a little daunting for people.
So you can save at any time and pick up wherever you were. But there was, at least in like the early dungeons, it gets a little bit better as it goes. Like the hardest dungeon, I think, is like the second dungeon, and then it gets easier as it goes. But there were a lot of dungeon rooms that were kind of connected puzzle-wise to where it's like, if I do this room, it'll automatically open up this section of the puzzle, and then I can complete that. So sometimes when you were in a dungeon, you kind of felt like, I need to finish this dungeon because this room is connected to that room, and if I play it tomorrow, am I gonna know exactly where I left off?
It's like playing a game of dominoes or something.
Yeah. So once I was in a dungeon, I knew I was in that dungeon, and I was gonna have to dedicate like the next hour of my life to figuring out this dungeon. But like that's just that is like the main part of the game though, are these dungeons, because each time you do a dungeon you end up walking away with an element power, and you're trying to get all your powers and all that stuff. So that was kind of a flaw, but if you really like puzzles, there are some really creative like elements in this game. And if you like old school collector stuff, that is there as well. Like there were so many times where I was in specific dungeons, and just not even in the dungeons, just outside of the map. Almost every screen in this game outside of dungeons has like a treasure box that you could get, and you need to figure out how to get to it, or like a different pathway that you can get to, but you have to kind of figure out the element of like the environment puzzle for getting to that. So like there's so much stuff for you to find and unlock in this game that was like really like attractive in keeping you playing the game and keeping your attention, depending on how deep you want to go into it. Because you can just level up your character basic enough and get through the game fine. You have to do the dungeons to progress the story, but like you could just take the screens at face value.
Did you ever get level gated or XP gated, where like I know you said you grinded earlier, but did you ever get to the point where you couldn't do something because you were under leveled?
There were some characters out in the world that uh, the people in my party, like the NPCs, would tell me like, "Hey, we're not going to be able to beat this person, but we can try." And you just have to use your abilities a little bit smarter. They would never stop me from fighting
Okay.
a character, but they would warn you like, "Hey, this might be difficult." There is a difficulty curve. The game can be quite challenging puzzle wise and combat wise when you accidentally stumble into an instance where there's just like hard characters. The game does have some great accessibility options. It literally has sliders for damage done by enemies, frequency of enemy attacks, and also puzzle speed.
Cool.
So I didn't dabble with them too much, except I did do the puzzle one because some of the puzzles where you're shooting a spear and it has to trigger one thing like in a domino effect, sometimes those happen really quick. And I lowered that speed halfway, and then I was able to like work at my own pace to get the puzzle done.
That's
so
cool.
It does have good accessibility stuff in there, so you can customize the experience a little better, which I greatly
Yeah, it'd be cool if other games did that.
More games do that.
I'm about to say this is one of the first games I've heard that can do something like that. That I've heard of that has done something like that. So awesome.
Yeah, because I've seen the enemy stuff, but not puzzle slowdown, which I was like really happy about because some of the puzzles are very precise, and that just slowing that speed down helped a lot. Overall, like I enjoyed the game. I think it's like one of the best RPGs I've played in a long time. It has its little bit of flaws with like the dungeons. Some of the writing can be a little annoying, like
it's an RPG,
and some of the like story it's dealing with like a cliche already at the start of like character has amnesia. So I'm fine with it. I think it does do some great things story wise, but it does do that thing that I find kind of a little annoying where since your character is playing an MMO, they'll point out stuff about the MMO being bad or silly, but it's also them commenting on their own game because you're playing in that MMO. So I hate some of that tongue-in-cheek stuff. For one instance, the dungeons, before you get to like a raid, because there is a raid, the dungeons have you break away from your party. It's only one character in a dungeon. So you're playing this MMO, and the game jokes about that early on of just like, oh, it's pretty silly, this is MMO, but we can't play together. And the NPCs go into the dungeons themselves separately, and the story is like, oh, they're racing through the dungeon. I would have preferred to have my party because I really like the side characters. It's kind of silly to me that the side characters kind of just, when you're in a dungeon, the big chunk of the game, the NPCs aren't there. You know, your party's not there. So the game does have some of that writing where it like pokes fun at game design, but it's also poking fun at itself. And sometimes I don't think they execute that fully. But I loved like the character designs, the story had me hooked despite going into some cliche stuff. So like overall, my experience with this game, like I'm giving it a 4 out of 5. I think it was really rewarding. It has just a couple things that are holding it back from being an even better experience, but it's doing so many things right. And I wasn't expecting to like hit the 30-hour mark with this game, but like I did, and I'm I put a ton of time in the game. I don't even know where my final hour count is, but I know I hit like 30 hours at one point, and I was like, damn, okay. Highly recommend Crosscode. This was a really good game, and Dave, you should play it.
Awesome. All right, we're gonna.
It is also out on PC, Switch, Xbox, as well as PS4. I played it on PS4. The Switch version I hear has some frame rate issues. I've seen gameplay on it. It doesn't seem too bad. I think I would prefer this on the Switch, even with the frame rate issues, because it's almost perfect for like that handheld mode.
Nice.
But I thought I'll just throw it out there.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to some questions and comments. We're running a little longer than normal today, so we'll kind of go through these quickly. But Chip Holt writes, what older games that you haven't played in some time have you all revisited? I dug out Everybody's Golf last night and played it for a couple hours. I forgot what a good golf game it is. For me, it's been almost none because I haven't I haven't been able to get out of my funk, but we have dabbled with, everybody's golf, recently, trying to, when my wife gets in the mood to want to play a video game or or try to, fit in with me when I'm playing something, she wants to, we've done some things like that. Not as much as we used to when the kids were a little younger, trying to play like family games or party games, but that would be where we would dabble back, like try to pick up something as a party game or something we could play as like the four of us or something.
Yeah, for me, I've been playing the Tony Hawk games on and off for the last like month since they announced that remaster. I'm tempted to go back to the Resistance franchise, just because I miss that series. I'm just worried that Resistance 1 is old game is old, especially like old first person shooters are really hard to go back to. But it's on my list of games to pick up again. I've just been focusing on new stuff right now. I have a stack of old games that I like bought or like brought back from my parents' house that I want to get through. But for the most part, it's just like this year, the Tony Hawk games. And we're going to have some decent Tony Hawk related coverage within the next month. So I'll probably be playing a lot more of Tony Hawk in the coming weeks.
All right. On Twitter, at CoreChris2017 writes, "Hello, guys. Hope all is well. Do you think Sony did that rumor about the pre-order going live on the 13th to test the demand, because right after that they upped the units being made from 4 million to 9 million? Thanks again and love the podcast." I have no clue is what he's talking about.
Okay, so there was, I think it was like Reset Era or NeoGAF. There was a rumor that pre-orders would go live on the 13th
of July.
Of this month.
Okay.
Yeah, of July. And those rumors started like a day before. They started on like the 12th. Like someone was just like, pre-orders are going to go live tomorrow. Don't know what time, but it's going live sometime tomorrow. And then they didn't happen. Eric Lampel, I believe is his name. He actually did an interview with Jeff Keighley because Jeff Keighley did a whole hands-on with the controller thing. And they asked him about the pre-order stuff. And Eric Lampel was like, I don't know who started those rumors. We will give you guys more of a heads up when pre-orders go live. It's not going to happen as a surprise. Like we will announce when pre-orders go live ahead of time. So I don't think Sony put that rumor out there, because if you go on Twitter or go on any forum right now, there's 1,000 people that say, oh, I have inside information that the pre-orders are going live tomorrow. And there's a lot of clickbait articles about the pre-order stuff. So I don't think Sony did anything to test the waters, because the idea that they increased the manufacturing from 4 million to 9 million, that doesn't happen on a whim because you saw pre-order demand goes up. That is just like
that happens because more people are going back to work.
Yeah, and also when they first said 4 million numbers, that was last quarter when they were doing their financial talk. A lot of time has happened between the last time they said that number, and they might have found a way to produce more unrelated to the pre-order rumor. It would just be bad business if they just dropped the pre-order thing out of nowhere.
Right.
Like, because especially with a lot of the people that are just going to flip, consoles, if you don't announce it beforehand and you just put it out there, there's going to be people that just have
you can't drop
Google
the pre-order
set up.
You can't drop the pre-order bomb anyways without saying the price.
Yeah, and they wouldn't do that at the same time. They will not let Amazon be the one that announced the price.
And then they'll say when the pre-orders go live. They'll announce the price of the two consoles, and then they'll say on a Thursday, and they'll say pre-orders go live Sunday morning Sunday morning.
Yeah, because they need to control that message, because the price is probably going to be high. And you don't want the announcement of the price to be when it goes live on Best Buy and Target and Walmart.
Right.
You want to basically do a presentation where you're like, here's the price, and here are 5 reasons why we justify this price. And pre-orders go live tomorrow or later this week.
Correct.
We will find out soon, I think. Yeah. I think within the next couple, I would say shortly after the Xbox One, within the next week, I think we'll have pre-orders out.
Well, and I think a lot of it depends on what Xbox does on Thursday too. If they turn pre-orders on, Sony will go faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Todd Hampton commented on one of our Facebook page posts. He goes, MJC tweeted that he will be unable to afford both the PS5 and Xbox Series X. Have you guys considered a PayPal donation system so that people like myself can help you guys out in these situations? Yes, we have. And we do have one. This is something that him and I went back and forth on for a couple of weeks. We created it partially so that we could move money back and forth between the two of us. So,
Yes.
that was the initial thing, because money is going into one local or one based resource that both of us have access to, but we are trying not to use it as a like an account. So we need to pull things in and out as needed. So if you guys feel so led, if you know, like this will just be another avenue of support. No obligation, nothing needed. If you don't want to do a Twitch sub, you don't want to do Patreon, there is a PayPal me link in our show notes. It will only be in our show notes. We will not advertise this on the Facebook group. We will not advertise this on the Facebook page. We will not tweet this out. So it's for the people that listen to our show and have access to our show notes. It is PayPal or www.paypal.me/digitaldaysgaming. If you feel led, go ahead.
Yeah, we've had this for a while set up. I think I set this up like a couple months ago, but we just didn't know like how to bring it up, and we don't want to bombard everyone with like, hey, Twitch, Patreon, PayPal. So, you know, Todd asked. So here it is. Yeah. And like Dave said, we're just gonna put it in the show notes. We won't like advertise that we have it, but if you do want to support us this way, it is an option, because I know Patreon isn't for everybody. Twitch isn't for everybody, so this is just another optional option to support us.
Yeah. So if anybody feels led and they want to do, I think like PayPal lets you schedule a monthly thing. If you want to do a monthly thing, that's totally your prerogative. If you want to do a one-time thing, that's your prerogative. If you don't want to do anything, like that's fine. No obligation, no need, and please do not use. I mean, this goes for Twitch sub, paid subs. This goes for Amazon Prime subs. Like, do not feel obligated to think that you have to support us. We want you to have ways to show support for us, but again, listening and sharing the show is the best way to do that, to help us grow, to help us get access to more opportunities. As our numbers have gone up, and we are able to show companies that, hey, we want to cover this, and they're like, oh, well, let's see what your stuff is. Like, oh, okay, well, maybe you can actually do something for us. Like, that's a really cool feeling when we hit a criteria or hit a mark, and that doesn't increase if you guys give us PayPal money. So it helps us. Like, yeah, like we don't, I don't want anybody to feel obligated that you need to pay for our consoles. Like, we'll figure it out. We'll make it work. I'll return some more cans in Michigan where I get 10 cents for every can once the machines are safe and there's not a whole lot of people around them.
We'll trade in our PS4s that we won't use because the old games are old.
So, like, yeah, just again, it's just another form. So, like, Todd, if you feel led to do that, we appreciate it. If anybody else feels led to do it, that would be amazing. People have hinted, like, oh, if you guys had E3, I was going to buy you lunch. Like, thank you. That's unnecessary, but also super appreciated. So it's always awkward talking about this. Like, and every time we get Patreon supporters, I get the cool excitement, but then I also get the, holy crap, somebody really likes what we do enough to pay us for it. Like, that's kind of still,
they like us. They really, really like us. Sort of situation.
It's still like a real weird feeling. So, but yeah, like that's where we're at with PayPal. So if it's something you feel that you want to do, more power to you. If you don't want to do it, more power to you. So, all right. So we're just going to move on to socials. You can follow us at Digital Days Pod. That's the main account. That's the account that will tweet the Ask Digital Days questions. That's the account that Michael writes elegant tweets with GIFs on it to advertise the show. He does that really, really well. That's where we'll kind of update you when we say we're going to record on a Monday, and then like an hour later I change my mind. Or I realize that I'm much more exhausted than I really thought I was, and I'm trying to do too much at one time. And Michael helps ground me on that. Like, hey, it's okay, man. I got plenty of time. We can just change something.
Yeah.
And then Michael's account is at firstmjc1st. And my account is at gooddavehunt. Again, those links will be in the show notes. Facebook group will be in the show notes for you to join. A couple of you guys have joined recently. Don't feel scared. Come in there, have a conversation. Come in there, say we suck and why you think we suck. Have a conversation with the rest of the fans. Discord channel is there. There's been some cool Discord stuff going on. Spoiler room for Last of Us. I'm sure it'll turn into a little bit of Ghost of Tsushima over the next couple weeks. Hopefully, that conversation's going on. And then Patreon, like we mentioned, patreon.com/digitaldaysgaming. $1 tip jar, $3 Discord access to a private Discord server. You don't need to participate in Patreon to have access to our Discord. You just get access to a private channel within that said Discord. $5, 24-hour early access to the regular show. By the way, if you subscribe on Twitch, you get the $3 Discord access as well, because it's pretty much the same in our pocket. And then $7 is the monthly bonus episode, which right now there's currently 3 of them: Retail Stories, our E3 Memories, and our Gaming Journalism Podcaster Origin Story. And we're still looking for suggestions for August, September, October, November, etc. So if you guys have any
it's
suggestions.
looking like Dave's just gonna mention food, and then I'll be like, I don't like it, or I like it, because apparently I like weird food. I just had fried pickles, Dave. I eat exotic food.
If you think of fried pickles as exotic food, we have some rather interesting conversations. So,
okay.
All right, a little bit longer show than normal, but we had some cool stuff to cover. Again, thank you to Ubisoft for giving us the opportunity to cover Watch Dogs. We will see if we can turn that into some YouTube content as well, some way, some shape of form. But again, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd like to really get closer to 100 subs so we can actually have a real URL, and then other companies might take us a little more seriously. So, getting our YouTube up there, follow us on Twitch, share the show, review the show, write something nice, please. But other than that, I hope everyone has a great week. And like Michael always says...
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Don't be a dick. See ya.